Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hand of God podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Shawn.
I'm Gio.
And I'm Alex. And here on the Hand of God podcast, we talk everything football, European football, Premier League, La Liga, Champions League. It's all right here. Got you guys. What's up, guys? Here with the usual suspects, baby. What's going on? Hand of God podcast here with the boys, Shawn, Gio, myself, Alexander. And guys, I think it's time that we, acknowledge some events that have happened, obviously not just in the world of football, but the world in general. So we're going to take a bit of a pivot from what we usually do, and we're just going to talk about how the situation in Ukraine has affected world football today. Obviously, we all know about the Roman Abramovich situation. We all know Russia's sanctions that have been placed on them, not only financially throughout the world and in other aspects, but in the world of sports. So I would just like to open up the table, guys, and I'm going to go through a list of topics, and we're all going to get our takes in there, and it's going to be a good episode. But before I start that, guys, how are you feeling today? What's up? Anything new? What's
Very
going
good.
on?
Very good. We had an amazing slate of football this weekend. A lot of big matches. A lot of Sunday was El Clásico, not only for Spain but also Roma Lazio, Boca Juniors River Plate. You had the London Derby, West Ham, Tottenham. Just great weekend for football. Very exciting.
It was a great weekend for football, and we will touch on a few of the results, just skimming right through them near the end of the episode. But as I mentioned before, the topic of this episode will be Ukraine. So, guys, for those that don't know, if you've been living under a rock, basically what's going on in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin has invaded Ukraine, and he has been there for how long would you guys say? Like a few months, no? Probably like since a little bit after the beginning of the year he's been there. He has been attacking hospitals, schools, basically trying to rebuild the Soviet Union, as he likes to put it. So that's just a little rundown for those that don't know. And obviously this has affected everyday life in Ukraine and also around the world. So we're just going to talk about how primarily, let's first start off with how this has affected Russia in general. Okay, so for those that don't know, Russia has basically been banned or barred from all sporting events, right? And as it relates to football, help me out here, guys, if I'm mistaken. I believe UEFA and FIFA have banned the Russian national team. FIFA has banned them, and UEFA has banned the Russian sides from playing the final this year, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get your guys' take on that. Just how that can possibly affect the future of the sport in Russia and Ukraine, and maybe further beyond that. Any thoughts, guys, that you have on that?
G, you can go first.
Yeah. As you could tell, the Champions League final was going to be played in Russia. Obviously, effectively they've taken that off due to the situation. But yeah, it's interesting to see because before you would like they were the superpowers for everything. Like even if anything was going wrong, they've been making money this way for a while. Roman Abramovich has been an oligarch for say 15 years, and now just they're finally putting stops on him. But yeah, it's interesting to say because politics and football. As of late, I feel like with the world knowing everything, a lot of cancel culture. You have fans, media just wanting people to do the right thing. So I feel like it's a good avenue to take.
Shawn?
I'd say it's good that they're putting restrictions, and they're definitely trying to put more pressure on Russia. I don't know if this is really working the way that we want it to. I just see Putin being very stubborn in his approach, and I don't think he really cares if Russia really suffers, as long as he, obtains his goal. And I don't think this will stop, especially if he does end up taking back the Ukraine into the Soviet Union. I think that this only ends with World War. But we'll see how it goes, man. Like, it's really disturbing when you think about it. Really, really disturbing. But definitely, when you look at the football side of things, the final not being in Russia, I do think that's a good thing. I don't know where they moved it to. Do you guys know?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they've decided that yet. I can look that up right now, Sean. But no, I'm not sure.
In the meantime, I'll keep going. But yeah, and at first the national team was really just they took away the name of Russia and they were gonna name it something else. And then a few days later, they ended up just banning them outright. Due to other teams really just saying we're not playing these teams, they're playing Russia anymore. So, yeah, I do think that was a good thing that the voices of the other countries were taken into consideration in the decision. But yeah, I mean, I do think that football mirrors society to an extent. So I definitely think this was needed to be done. So yeah, right. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and also they moved the final to France.
Okay.
There are no more French teams left in the UEFA.
yeah. That's shout out to France for stepping in there on short notice, like a UFC fighter. You know what I mean? But yeah, just also I think it's also really important that people realize, and obviously Putin does not realize, how this affects Russian athletes in general. Like not only Russian athletes, but Ukrainian athletes. We've heard so many stories of Ukrainian athletes going to Ukraine to fight on the front lines. We've already had Alexander Zinchenko and Andriy. Oh my God, these names are so crazy. Yarmolenko. That I'm not sure if they're fighting on the front lines or they just went back to Ukraine to be with their family. I'm not necessarily.
They're still playing.
They're still playing?
I mean,
yeah, they're playing.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry. I was thinking of because they all have the same names, and that's messed up. I was thinking of Vladimir Klitschko, Vasily Lomachenko, just to name a few that have gone back to Ukraine, to fight on the front lines. But just case in point being, how do you guys think that this can affect football in Russia in the future, if any effect at all? Because they've already been banned from competition. Also, basically all the big competitions. How do you guys think this is going to affect them in the future?
Honestly, I think maybe Putin might or probably will definitely affect their chances of going to the World Cup. I don't know if they're barred from that already. I don't know if they
think so. Yeah, I think they are.
Out of that, just hopefully they put another team in, another team gets an opportunity. But going back to the Yarmolenko, he scored this weekend for West Ham, and as he scored, he just broke down into tears. The whole stadium cheering him on. It's in a bad way, but you get to see the football fans unite over something and show their support. So I really like that aspect about it, that everyone's on Ukraine's side.
I agree. Yeah. I just want to go on a little, not tangent, but talk about something for a minute. So I have NBC Sports. I think all of us in America have NBC Sports. I think they have Sky Sports and other networks in Europe, But yeah, I just want to talk about how they're like going about the whole Ukrainian war. Well, Russia invading Ukraine. I think that they're kind of capitalizing off of this a little too much, if I'm honest. Even when they're panning to these players like Zinchenko and Yarmolenko, like I just feel like they're like when they're crying, they focus the camera too much on them, bro. I just feel like that they should treat their privacy a little bit more. Like you shouldn't have him crying for 30 seconds. Like you obviously see he's going through like something really tough. Like let's not profit off of that. Like give him some space, at least a little bit. But yeah, I just think I feel like they're just capitalizing off it a little too much, and I feel like they should probably stop, if I'm honest. I mean, I feel like they should definitely like cover the topic, but like when somebody is breaking down or they're embracing each other when they see each other pre-match or something like that, I just feel like it's there's a boundary that should be placed that protects the players. But yeah, that's really just what I wanted to say.
It's nice to see sometimes, but yeah, mentioned, it's the same reason why Putin is going into Ukraine, just $sign at the end of the day. So NBC might not be as different as we think.
So on that subject, I think it's really important to talk about. I mean, because we all know that, and there's an old saying, chaos creates opportunity, and of course, TV networks, they take advantage of that. So how do you guys think maybe they should go about it? Because I think it's kind of hard when the whole world is kind of talking about this, obviously, because it's such a crazy thing that's happening in our lifetime. How do you think they could go about it respectfully then? Because I mean, they gave oh my God, I always get confused. They gave one of them that played for Man City the captain's armband. I remember that. And as Shawn had mentioned, when Yarmolenko scored a goal, that they just keep the camera on them the whole time, and even probably in points in the game when they're not really doing anything, you just keep the camera on them the whole time, just maybe catch a glimpse of him, breaking down. How do you guys think they should go about that without seeming like they're exploiting the situation? Because it feels like even news, news stations now, they're doing the same thing, just exploiting.
In my opinion, I think more exposure is better than none exposure at all. So I do like that they are, showing that. They gave him a captain's armband. Every time there's a Ukraine flag, they show it, just to have people, the what's it called, just have them remember that it's still going on, and they could be doing a difference if they really wanted to. So I just feel like the more exposure, the better.
Mm-hmm. I think the flags, like showing flags and stuff like that, I think that's fine. I just feel like emotionally it crosses a point when they're crying or when they're embracing each other before the match. Let's say it's a Man City and a West Ham match, and Zinchenko and Yarmolenko are embracing before the match. I feel like some things need to be kept private, and I get it. You want to make it real for your audience, but there's a point you probably shouldn't cross. Maybe especially when he's scoring a goal and he's crying. I feel like it's cool for the first 5 seconds to show that he did cry, but past that point, I just feel like they're almost like, yes, keep crying. Whoa, this is amazing. Our ratings are going up. You see what I'm saying? I just feel like it's too much sometimes, man. And I feel like they should definitely try to back off of it a little bit. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And from there, guys, we're going to talk about one of the biggest stories right now in sports that has been developing, the Roman Abramovich situation. We did touch on that a little bit in the last episode with Shawn, expressing his happiness, not for obviously for what's going on in Ukraine, but for
obviously
for this possible turning of the tide here. Now we can dig a little bit deeper into it, guys. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a company that put a bid on Chelsea actually recently. I think it was for 2.9 billion. Yeah, it was for 2.9 or something like that. They put a bid on Chelsea. So the market is open, obviously. I mean, there's still some sanctions and tie-ups in that situation. But guys, what do you think of what's going on?
In my humble opinion, I don't think because even if they do sell Chelsea, Abramovich, that'd be the stupidest sale of all time. Selling, giving someone something that's worth $3 billion for basically zero. So I feel like the sale won't get done, especially if that's the case. And, I feel like Chelsea's isn't being affected as much. The sanctions are in place, but they're still winning games. They're about to play Real Madrid in the Champions League. Looks like they're the favorites in that chance. They just look like they're smooth sailing. I feel like they're just gonna wait this out and try to keep him as the owner.
Yeah, I've heard that. What people need to understand is if this goes on until the summer, and even past the summer, they're going to go into administration. I don't know if you all know what that is, but if that happens and they're docked 13 points and they're out the Champions League and out of Europa League next year, plus a bunch more happens when a team goes under like that, but it's going to be worth pennies if that happens. I'm telling you that right now. And regardless, I don't think that he's going to be able to keep Chelsea Football Club. The new owners, whoever they may be, I saw it could be Saudi Arabian owners that own Newcastle. They're interested, but I feel like this raises another point. When you're looking at like washing, I think it's called like football washing or soccer washing or something like that. Like it's a very big thing, and I think that especially in England, the way they need to look at who was buying these teams should be regulated.
Yep.
Definitely, because half the owners that you have, like even when you look at like Man City or Newcastle now, bro,
it's a lot of dirty money.
There's a reason why they have so much money. Like there are things that's happening over there that, since it's not so much in the public, it's not talked about too much. But it is really, really bad, really bad when it comes to like how they're treating people over in these countries and what's being censored and stuff like that. I feel like that's a whole nother discussion, but when you look at, there are certain wars that are going on right now in different countries that are not being picked up. The media kind of tells you what is important and what's not. And I think that's really, really, really disgusting. But, it's the media, so you can't really expect too much.
Like you mentioned, just, I don't know what it was in Newcastle. They asked them like, "Oh, Saudi Arabia just beheaded 39 people one day. What do you think?" Those are owners. He said, "Oh, I'm just gonna focus on football." But yeah, like media just kind of picks and chooses. If Russia is hot, it's gonna get clicks. So what does the UK do? Bans Roman Abramovich. But it's like that in all sports. Sanctions are just different. Even in the NFL, you have a player that Calvin Ridley. In a game, he's banned for a year, and then you got Deshaun Watson, 22 sexual assault cases, and he was just traded to the Browns, still can play. So I guess they just pick and choose whatever's hot, and
yeah. And that's the thing with the sports world, huh? Is that because obviously these things get swept under the rug, because what happens at the end of the day, like we talked about before, with these TV networks, it's all about money, and these big players. Think about it. A smaller player, if they do something like that, are they really going to get the same leeway to, excuse my French, fuck up? You know what I mean? Are they, you know what I'm saying? So players like a Deshaun Watson, Calvin Ridley, or even in football, when you have these huge clubs like Newcastle, not so much, but, a Chelsea, when you have a Man City, those things tend to get swept under the rug because they're able to push that narrative to the side a little bit. And I think that's something that, in football, like Shawn said, definitely needs to be cleaned up, because if we're being honest here, and maybe this is speaking too candidly, this Roman Abramovich situation only blew up because of Putin invading Ukraine. I think if this didn't happen, probably he wouldn't have faced any sanctions. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Yeah,
right?
And it's been this way for 15 years. He's been making dirty money off Russian, oil, whatever the fuck they do up there. He's been making off this for 15 years and just pumping it into Chelsea.
Yeah. So that kind of begs another question: should the governing bodies of, we'll say the Prem, whoever would handle those sorts of things for those clubs, should they do not like a purging, but should they do like a more, like Shawn was suggesting, an in-depth look on who's buying these clubs, or would that just be unethical?
I honestly don't think so, because that's what low key makes the sport interesting. Buying Mahrez for $80 million and buying Kevin De Bruyne and buying all these players in one transfer window. That's what makes it interesting. Makes the Premier League the best. There's the best players, the most money, the most TV contracts. I mean, if that were to happen, I would honestly see the Premier League going downhill, and I don't think anyone wants that from the clubs, the league, even the English Federation, because that's like the most. The football is the most important thing out there, and the one market that makes the most money. So I feel like if you were to do that, do a whole purge, it would just be kind of destroying everything that's been built.
Mhm.
So
I feel like
yeah, go ahead, Shawn. Sorry.
like this all started, the whole 80 million and all these outrageous fees started with Chelsea. Like it started with Abramovich. Like
Yep.
he's the one who's changed the sport into being 80 million for players,
Basically, yeah.
100 million for players, like stuff like that. He started the trend, and yeah, I feel like that's kind of destroyed part of the game. I really do. They say that they look into who's buying these clubs, but they don't.
Yeah.
Certain regulations are used for some people and some aren't. Like even when you look at Newcastle being bought, right? The Saudi Arabian owners were not supposed to buy that. They weren't supposed to be allowed to, but they did. When you look at even when remember financial fair play was a really big thing 3 years ago, something like that.
Mhm.
Like Manchester City used to break the limits every time, and then nothing would happen. No transfer bans,
Yep.
no nothing. And it's because they had the best lawyers, they had the most money. Things get swept under the rug, and that's why they did away with financial fair play. But yeah, these I feel like these owners have kind of ruined the sport to an extent. Like they've been allowed to dominate and do all these great things, but I don't feel like it's really that fair.
Yeah, wasn't it that
that's probably what I'd say.
paid a fee? If you broke, paid another fee.
Exactly.
Yeah, Shawn, I would actually like to hear you expand a little bit more on that. How, in what way, if you could say specifically, or what ways do you think this ruined the sport? I mean, I could come up with a few off the top of my head, but I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Really, it's just inflation for these players, like the prices for wages. When you don't have an owner that can do these great things, you have to kind of run your club differently. Because when you look at clubs like Arsenal, when you look at clubs like Liverpool, when you look at clubs like who else? You could put Spurs up there, I guess, but they're like self-sustaining. They have a self-sustaining model. So they only spend so much money depending on who they sell and for how much they sell them. So when you have a club like even Chelsea, right? And you see how they've been run for the past 15 years. When you look at their stadium seats 40,000 people, right? In the audience. When you look at like an Arsenal, it's like 70, 60,000. The same for Tottenham, the same for like Manchester United. I think it's like 80, 90, 100, something like that. It's a lot bigger, but Chelsea does not run a profit. Like they don't run a profit. And then when you look at, if they were to try to expand, they wouldn't be able to do it. So they'd have to move their whole entire stadium somewhere else. And they're still able to buy these great players. And I know it has to come down to like their youth system and how their loan system and how they sell their players. But at the same time, like it's just not fair how much money they can pump into their club compared to these other teams. And that's all down to Roman Abramovich. You'll not find another owner that allows his team to not run a profit and then still inject 200 million the next summer and stuff like that. So I think that's a big issue. When you look at like Manchester City, how they're able to buy £100 million player and have him rest on the bench. Every single one of their signings are like 50 million. And when you look at them selling players, they don't really sell. Not yet. So I think that's a very, very big problem, especially when they don't have the fans to fill up their stadium every weekend. So, they're not turning that big of a profit either. So, I mean, it's ridiculous, just that point. But yeah, that's just one aspect. If you have more questions, we can do like a longer episode sometime in the future. But that's just a little bit of it.
And for those, we did get off on a bit of a tangent there, but what we all just talked about, it also relates to, in general, just how people that have done shady things and that are in a position of power are able to make the game that we love so much and unfair and unbalanced, basically pay to play, if you want to put it plainly. The days of seeing, at least in my opinion, the days of seeing an even playing field, I feel like, are long behind us. I feel like it's always we always know the usual people that are going to be at the top of the table, and they're usually buying it out for the top spot or for the Champions League or whatever. And I don't know, it definitely, while I do agree with Gio in that I'd love to see people just like be throwing crazy amounts of money, like paying 80 million for some scrub that they think is going to be good in like 2 years or whatever. For me, it's exciting, but at the same time, it does kind of dilute the game a little bit. I don't know if you agree with that. And Gio, I want to ask you, and this will probably be the last point we touch on. Do you think they should implement, and for both of you guys actually, do you think they should implement a salary cap in football? What do you guys think? I've heard that idea being thrown around. I don't really know how I feel about it, but what do you guys think?
Tough, especially as they do in American sports. Shitty during the season, you get the best player next year, and since there is like clubs go up and down here and not, and you feel me, not like the MLS where every club just stays. So it works for the MLS, but I cannot see salary caps, because then I feel like you would have to implement trades as well.
Yep.
So it'd be weird, especially for the longtime football fans. It's been 100 years plus. With this model, just buying players. I feel like they should just keep it this way.
Yeah, I think I think salary caps would also like have to internalize the leagues too much.
Yeah.
Like you just can't have Mbappe going from PSG to Real Madrid so freely. Like it would have to be a whole process.
Yeah.
But Shawn, what do you? I saw your face when I mentioned the term salary cap in football.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have to say about that?
I feel like that would be the beginning of the end for the sport, if I'm honest. Yeah. When you look at American sports and you look at football, that's a major difference. And I feel like there's a reason why soccer is the best sport in the world, if we're honest. And I feel like it's because of this model, if we're honest. I definitely think there should be like a financial fair play that should definitely overlook everything, but I feel like the laws should be enforced compared to how lax they were. But no, I do not think there should be a salary cap.
Just those words coming out of your mouth, it seemed like it didn't feel right for you to say that.
Yeah, it didn't. But yeah, I mean, I could go on longer about it, but I don't think that I should.
Yeah, we'll do another episode on that, because that opens up a whole can of worms, and I'm sure we have a lot of ideas that we could talk about. But that's everything that we have on the Ukraine situation as it pertains to football. Guys, is there anything you would like to say? Any last words? Any final words for this pod, for the fans out there, for the fingers of God, as we like to call them, because we are the hand, so they are the fingers.
I want to say pretty amazing game. One of the best clubs in the world.
Oh,
performance.
I'm not gonna rebuttal that. Obviously, top four is heating up.
Yeah.
It is going to be a scary last 8 games, I think, after the international break. We're gonna talk about the international break next episode, but that's gonna be fun, especially when you look at the players from Arsenal that have been picked up into their national teams. But yeah, I definitely think that the race for top 4 is gonna heat up in the next 8 weeks.
Yep, I agree. And with that, guys, we will wrap up another episode of the Hand of God podcast. Thank you for joining us. Prayers to Ukraine and everyone that's dealing with all the repercussions of what's going on over there. Guys, we will catch you next week. See you later.
See you guys.
We out.
Peace.
Peace.
Yo.